the youth. So our purpose as a charity is to ensure that every young person has an equal chance to reach their full potential. And we do this, our method to do it is our Power of the Hour, where we ask adults from all different backgrounds to share their story with a young person to help them build perspective, know-how, and understanding of their own journey to progression.
And I know if I look back on my life, it's funny, isn't it? I'm sure everybody can identify those people you met where you had a little turning point, a little realization, be it big or small. We've all had different people in our lives who have been influential in terms of what path we ended up on and the different things we then went on to explore. So that's one of the things that I personally find so interesting and inspiring in the model. Rachel, I'd love you to share the story about what inspired you to start LVN. You said it was back in 2015. Would you share that story with the group?
Yeah, so there was a number of factors that came into play for me starting LVN. One of them was that I had, where I live in Islington, a group of young boys that live above me in the same space that I live in, so I know that it's not huge. And it was a family of 5 boys, and they were all what you would classified as white, intergenerational, unemployed. That's the family they came from, and they were all hanging outside my children's bedroom window. We're on the ground floor every night with a collective of friends. So I saw about 20 boys just hanging outside there. And rather than call the police because they were causing a disturbance, I started to get involved with them and starting to get an understanding of who they are and what they're about. All of them had left school without qualifications. All of them didn't see any hope or inspiration, and none of them really knew how to go about getting a job or doing something positive. And at the time, I was working for a charity part-time. It's my own experience in the charity sector. And my job was to place corporate volunteers. And it was quite exasperating because volunteers from the corporates wanted to do amazing stuff, but the only thing that we could offer them was like paint the fence again or do some gardening. And then I'd come home to the boys and I'd think, how amazing would it be if these young boys were to have the opportunity to meet people outside their sphere of influence that can help them maybe with their CV, help them with any ideas that they've got. So I put that idea to the boys, and they were actually really, really up for it. And around the corner, there's a community centre. So I just went in there and I said, look, I've got all of these young boys here. Can we bring them into the community centre and run a little project? And they were like, absolutely fine, no problem. And it was great. We made a program called Be Your Own Boss, and they had their business ideas, and different people were coming in and giving their hour and talking about and helping them with various business ideas, t-shirt making and books, that kind of thing. The guy that ran that community centre kept popping in because he was really curious as to what was going on. And then he pulled me to a side and said, Rachel, we've got a really big problem with young people in Stonebridge and Brent and also in Stockwell. Could you run something similar in those 2 areas? And I said, yeah, that's fine, not a problem. And that's when I realised the magnitude of the problem that we've got across London in terms of the numbers of young people that just aren't engaging, aren't part of anything. And in those 2 areas, they were predominantly black young girls and boys. Some of them actually, different to the group that I was working with in Islington, had degrees and qualifications, but still felt that they weren't part of mainstream society. So we ran those programs, and then it just became a logistic nightmare because I had so many adults wanting to get involved, so many young people through word of mouth saying, oh, do you know an architect? Do you know this? You know, it was just going on like that, which is brilliant, but it's just too much to manage, which is why we kind of pulled back from the street and we worked on the technology and the business plan. All of the work that we did do initially has been formed. I collaborated with a professor of criminology. We've written a paper called Countering Network Poverty as a Precursor to Gang Activity, and that's talking about the importance of social mixing. So we've got lots of evidence to support what we've done, and we've collected all our case studies and what have you. But now technology is ready, and we just want to kind of reignite the initial buzz that we had when we first started.
Could you just talk for a moment about how the pandemic has affected young people in your realm? I know from my experience, I work at the NSPCC. There's very various impact that the pandemic has had on young people. But in this respect, in terms of how they socialize and meet different people, find their career path, find their first job, could you talk about that for a moment as well?
Yeah, so I mean, the COVID has obviously affected all of us. What has really come to light is the sheer numbers of young people that are under what we term digital poverty. So actually having Wi-Fi, actually having space in your home to be separate, to be able to conduct things, having up-to-date technology and what have you. There's a big push across fundings and charities to get that bit sorted. And now it's very much about learning online etiquette as much as anything else. Job interviews will take place online. They will probably work. This is the new norm, and unless you've had that experience through your work to get to be able to prepare yourself for this, then it's very difficult. And that's very much how we're sort of communicating within the DWP. On top of that, if you can imagine lots of young people, and this might have even happened to yourself when you were in your early 20s and late teens. So many jobs are done through word of mouth, but also you might be working in a bar and someone might say, actually, you'd be brilliant for this office job. All of that's gone. There's no natural selection anymore. There's no way for businesses to kind of find local talent in other areas, which is why it's even more important that we have this platform, so that employers can see the mix of what's going on, and young people can actually get a look in, because now that way's gone. And if you take, even before the pandemic, only 3 in every 10 jobs were advertised. So it pretty much was all through word of mouth. If you're not in a network, it's even harder to get into one. So it's even more crucial now as well. I saw one of the questions was around training. Our training is really kind of very, very light touch, because the delivery is light touch. So with businesses, we have got an induction where we'll go through a presentation, explain the importance of networks and also the methodology. All volunteers are provided with a session plan, and that's just basically to outline the hour and how the hour is structured, and also tips of what topics we want volunteers to cover within the hour, and then you could mix and match depending on the information that you want to relay. But essentially the delivery is an hour in total, 5 minutes introduction, 20 minutes where we will ask the volunteer to talk about your own personal journey, and then another sort of another 30 minutes to discuss question and answers. Any of the young people might have questions about the industry or questions about your journey or that kind of thing, and then it's closed. So the hour does actually go really, really quickly. And I think what's really important to communicate is that you as an adult might think, well, why would anyone want to hear my journey? I don't quite fit. I don't quite have these, what you might think would qualify to speak to the young people. We've ran over 700 power of the hours, and I can guarantee that the young people are absolutely curious about other people's lives. So it doesn't matter that you might not, think that you're giving something of interest. They are fascinated, and it's that communication which actually creates a lot of magic. And it's that walking away of going, oh my God, I never knew that was that person's journey, or that's how they did that. Everyone's got a fascinating story to share, and all the young people that we engage with are genuinely, interested, and it gives that sort of thought, makes them think more as well. So everyone's hour is really, really crucial.
Okay, yeah, that's great, Rachel. And could you tell us a little bit about what's unique about LVN? Are there other organisations like you, or what's what's your sort of core difference to other youth organisations that are out there?
Yeah, so our differences in the volunteering sector is generally when it comes to volunteering, particularly around young people and mentoring, you would potentially be matched with a young person and you'd have that, say, 6 months to a year relationship. Um, the flaws in that is if the young person and the adult um, don't match, don't connect, then that falls on its, quite quickly. And also the waiting time in order to become matched and the training that's needed to be matched. Where we're different is we are more about young people meeting lots of different adults to help to build up that perspective. So our evidence is showing that we can take a young person who's very much in the deep end, and when I say deep end, I mean gang affiliated, and living in quite high levels of poverty. If we introduce them to 10 people outside their sphere of influence, it's enough to change their mindset and to get a good understanding of life beyond their immediate environment.